Okay, so good evening, everyone. So today we're going to be looking at Kotlin conditional, right? We're going to be looking at Kotlin conditionals. Um, and basically what we're going to be covering today, we're going to be looking at if, else, when, while, break, slash, continue. Okay, but before we go over, I like to actually say this whenever I'm teaching, right, to people. Oftentimes, right, so what I'm about to say is not a standard, right? It's not something coined by anybody. It's just me, just my observation, right, which is subject to review and argument. It can say it's wrong, it's also fine. But one of the things I've seen oftentimes is knowing the literal meaning of a word, right, helps you to understand the actual meaning of that word in a particular context or scope, right? So there are certain words that you could use normally and they mean this, right? But in the court of law, they kind of have a gray area. They kind of mean, something similar but not the same, right? So I like to tell people that okay, when you get into a space, a particular scope or context, and you're finding difficulty understanding, a word, right? See if you can just find the literal meaning of that word. Oftentimes I've known that has actually helped me to, understand things, right? So it's one thing I like to always tell my students. So just take note of that. So we're going to talk about Kotlin conditional. So I want to start by asking this question, right? What is a condition, right? Anybody, you can unmute and just say it. I don't want you to don't try to give me dictionary definition. If you give me, I'll still break it down and I'll still explain what I want to, right? But I kind of like people to say it as it is in their head, right? So what's the condition? Chinazon, go ahead. Please, Prosper, next time raise your hand for it. Chinazon, go ahead.
Okay. A condition is well in terms of programming language is like a command or an instruction that will enable us to write a dynamic activity, perform a dynamic activities in our code.
Okay, this guy is carry and go programming. Okay, okay. Is it Prosper? Prosper, go ahead. Let's say something. Okay, Chinazon, thank you.
Yeah, a condition in my own definition is like an instruction that is meant to be carried out without any exceptions or inclusions. So it's just that particular thing that is meant to be done.
Okay, so if I want to really follow your definition, right, the condition is not the instruction, it is the exception.
No,
Okay?
like I mean it's an instruction
Uh-huh.
that is passed that is
Okay.
not meant to have an inclusion or exclusion.
Busy,
Just that
busy
particular thing
grammar.
should be done.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Adalinda, go ahead. Thank you, Prosper.
Okay, in my own understanding, I understand condition as a state of a thing, a state of something. It can either be a command or an appearance. That's what I understand by condition.
Okay. Okay. So we are all correct, right? We are all correct. So condition, right? So like you said, a state of a thing, right? Yeah. When you look at when you say present condition, the present condition of things is the state of that thing. But of course, the state of that thing is with respect to something. Something kept it at that state, right? And that's something that kept it at that state. That is condition. That's what we're going to be looking at, right? But now we're going to be looking at it from a programming perspective, from a Kotlin perspective, because I'm going to take a step back to a first class where we talked about the program, right? We talked about programming. Now we said that program is a set of instructions, right? So this set of instructions, when you carry these instructions out, they give you a desired or an expected result, right? Now, so let's look at this instance. I like to use this example. Noodles, right? Let's say, let me share. Let's do this. I think I'm going to go to. Let me go to our code, right? Let's go to our playground, our cooking playground, and let's type a few things. Let's type a few things. So when you have, generally speaking, so set of instructions, I could say how to make noodles, right? I really want to take time to explain this so that when we start application, you don't have to, you're not confused, right? You have the basic understanding of what this is, right? So let's say I want to write a program that, helps someone to, make noodles. That's what the program is. Remember, forget the computer, whatever programming language or computer definition you have. It's just a set of instructions. Just take it, and that's basically what it is. It's just a set of instructions, right? Now, how these instructions are laid out, how they are formatted, how they are displayed, right? It varies. It can vary, with respect to the programming language, with respect to the actual problem you're trying to solve, and all those, right? But generally speaking, the program is just a set of instructions. So when I actually give you a step-by-step process on how to make noodles, I'm giving you a program. Yes, I have given you a program, right? So let's say step one, right? Step one is boil water in pot. Let's just follow me, please. Step two, boil or put noodles in pot and boil for 5 minutes. Okay, oh yeah, 5, only like 5, not 4. 5 minutes. Okay, step 3, let's say add seasoning, right? Step 4, cook for 5 minutes. And then step 5, please don't write on the Zoom. Try not to use the annotate feature on this Zoom, right? That annotate text, don't touch it, right? So you don't draw on the screen, please. Don't do that. Thank you very much. Okay, so step 5, let's say step 5, after I've cooked for 5 minutes, let's just say serve with chilled bottle of water. Water is good for the body. Okay, so let's look at this, right? This is a step-by-step process on how to make noodles, how to prepare noodles, right? This is a program, okay? This is what a program. So when you take the first step, now, because it's a program, it executes, instructions are meant to be executed sequentially. That's why you have step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They should go sequentially, right? Top to the bottom. Now, if you skip a step or start from somewhere else, of course, you may, oftentimes you are none, or you definitely, not the rule, you will definitely have a different result. Maybe not the desired or expected result, but you have a different result. So programs are meant to execute what sequentially, top to bottom, left to right. Okay. Now this is where conditions now come in. Okay. Let's look at step 1. Boil water in what? Pot. Now it's possible, right? What if I can only boil water in pot? Okay. Let me get us involved, right? What's the condition for, let's say, executing step 2? No, step 3 rather. Somebody should tell me. What do you think? Do you think there's a condition for executing step 3? Anybody? Yes, Imabong.
Yes, there is. You
Okay,
have
what's
to
the condition?
you will have to put the noodles first in the pot and
Boil
boil
for 5 minutes. Good. So because if there is just water in the pot, you have not put the noodles and you have not boiled it for 5 minutes, and then you just go ahead to put seasoning, you have disobeyed that instruction, right? So you have disobeyed the instruction. That's the truth. So you just, or in fact, better still, let me even say, put water in pot. Not let me not say boil. So after putting the water, you now go and you add seasoning. Okay. And then you now put the noodles in the pot. And then you boil for 5 minutes. You can't cook for 5 minutes again. Right? It doesn't actually. So there's a bit of what chaos now. So it means that for the next step, right, there actually can be a condition. Or if I'm not actually, there is a condition to go to the next step. So that's just the idea of conditions, right? So they are just statements, right? Conditions are basically just statements that determine the outcome of a particular action or a particular result, right? So if I want to, let me give another example, right? Go to the market, buy me bread. If there is no bread, buy me meat pie. So there's a condition there for me to get meat pie. That means bread has to be unavailable, right? So that's the concept. I'm just trying to paint out scenarios so you understand conditions before we get into, okay, how do we carry this out in the context of a programming language, right? But let you just have that idea, right, to know what it's all about. Okay, so let's come back and let's bring it to let's come to Kotlin right now. Let's come to programming. So we're going to be looking at if else, right? So the various conditions we have. So before now, we looked at some logical operators, right? We looked at the less than, right? We looked at the less than or equal to, right? This is less than or equal to. We looked at greater than. We looked at greater than or equal. Yeah, I think we did some stuff and you guys are actually giving me an answer. We looked at equality, which is double of that. We also looked at not equal, right? We looked at these logical words, operators, right? So now we can actually use these conditions, right, to perform different actions. So Kotlin has, if statements, right? So the if statement is used to, okay, let me just start. It's used to specify, in case anybody has taken notes, used to specify a block of code, right? It's used to specify a block of code to be executed. I'm going to explain some words there. If a specified condition is true. Okay, so that's what the if. So one of the conditionals we're looking for in Kotlin is the if statement, right? Which is used to specify a block of code to be executed. So when I say block of code, I'm also talking about a program, a set of instructions, right, contained in a particular scope. So we'll look at that. Like, when you were writing your code, you notice everything we are writing is inside this. We'll talk about functions actually, but everything inside here is called a block of code, and it is contained inside of this brackets you're seeing here, which are called curly brackets, CURLY, right? So just take note of that. So we have the if statement, right? We have the else statement. We have the else statement, right? And interestingly, these are words we use on a daily basis. Like, these are words we have been using all our lives, but now we're bringing it into actually teaching and instructing the computer on tasks to carry out, right? So this is used to, let me just copy this, right? So this is actually used to specify a block of code to be executed if the same condition is false, right? So just like I said, okay, fine. If there is bread, right? I want you to go to the market and buy bread. If there is bread, buy it. If there's no bread, buy me meat pie, right? So we use the else there. So I can say if this is available, if bread is there, buy it. Else, buy me meat pie. So the else statement specifies an instruction to be executed if the same condition is false, sorry, not true. So the false there means that there is no bread. So there's no bread, so execute this one. Since there's no bread, get me what? Meat pie. Okay. Now we have this is more like what we call a nested stuff, right? Of course, you know, you can have we have an else if else if statement. Okay. So the else if statement specifies a new condition. I'm not going to be typing much again. So it specifies a new condition to test if the first condition is what false. So we went to the market to get bread. This is this first place. So if there's bread, get it. If there's no bread, else get meat pie. But it's possible that there's no meat pie. Else, if there's no meat pie, get something else, maybe donuts, right? So you're just giving an else, like because the end goal is you need to get something. You need to get a result. You need to buy something because you're hungry. But if this is not there, okay, this is not there, okay, else get this one. Else if this one is not there, get this one. Else if this one, so we can have an else if statement. It's just reiterating to make sure that it gets to a point where you get your desired result. Okay. Now, another Kotlin conditional is what we call the when statement, right? The when statement. So the when statement specifies, it's used to, so let me just say specifies many alternative blocks of code. So when I say blocks of code, just take it instructions, right? Instructions, program, blocks of code to be what executed. So when you're using it's almost the same thing as the if else, but here you specify the alternatives. The alternatives also is more like when I'm sending you to the market, I'm giving you all the possible options you will ever have to get me my desired result. Okay, so that's basically that. Now let's actually test this, right? Let's test this. So first of all, you need to understand there is a syntax to using the if statement, right? There is a syntax to using the if statement. So let's start with our Kotlin if statement, right? Okay, so we use the if to specify a block of code to be executed if the condition is true, just like we said. So if the condition is true, then we use the if statement. So this is the same syntax in Kotlin, right? You just say if, sorry, small letter, if, right? And you put in the condition, and then you put in the block of code. So let me take that slowly. If, and then you open a bracket, but of course it's called a parenthesis, right? Called a parenthesis. So you put in your condition, right? And after that, you open a curly brace, right? And then inside the curly brace, you put in your block of code. So this is the syntax. This is how you create an if statement. That's the syntax to create an if statement. So notice that the if statement is in lowercase, right? Lowercase. If you use maybe an uppercase I or both letters uppercase, it will actually generate an error. Okay. So let's now actually do a practical stuff. I'm still going to just comment this guy, maybe after copying it, right? Let's do practical stuff right now. Okay. Okay, let me just clear it out. So write it from the top. So let's test these values. Let's test two values to find out. Let's test these two values, right? And then let's find out if 20 is greater than 18, right? We want to check if 20 is greater than 18. So how can we do this? So I'm just going to, it's just simple. I'll say if, then what is the condition there? 20 greater than 18. Now, I'm going to start out without even having to create variables, right? We'll get to a point where we can create variables, but I'll start out without creating variables. But let's just go straight to using the actual data types, right? So if 20 is greater than 18, what should happen? So 20 greater than 18 here is the condition. If this is true, remember the if statement will specify the block to be executed if the condition is true. So if this is true, what should happen? I'm now going to open my curly bracket, and then I'm now going to put in the block of code. The block of code, like I said, is just instruction. So if it's true, what should happen? Okay, so if it's true, I want you to print 20 is greater than 18. So when I run this, of course, the result is going to be 20 is greater than 18, right? Because this condition is what? True. So we use the if statement to specify this block of code to be executed. To execute this, run this code, right? If this condition is what? True. Now, but what happens if it is false? What happens if it is false? So assuming I say 20 less than 18. Now, 20 less than 18, of course, is what? False. The question is, will it execute this code? Yes or no? You can just respond in the chat or unmute and tell me. So if, what do you think the result of running this code? What do you think the result will be? Okay, Prosper.
I think it will throw an error because there is no else statement.
Okay, that's fine. Another person. Olajuwon, go ahead.
The block of code doesn't run because 20 is less than 18. I mean,
Good.
less than 18, sorry. It won't run.
Yes, good. So definitely this block of code will not run because when we define the if statement, we say that the if statement only executes this block of code in it, right, if the condition is true. But if it is not true, right, of course it will run it. So when I click on run here, right, you just see that nothing happens. I'll click on that again. Nothing happens. Now, the reason nothing happens is because I have not also told it what should happen if it is what? False. I haven't given it anything. So just like telling someone, take this, go and buy me what? Bread. Okay? And the person goes and there's no bread. Can the person buy anything? No, the person probably just come back home. Right? The person just come back to you because there's no bread. And you did not give me any other instruction. You understand the point? You didn't give me any instruction. You didn't give me any roadmap. You didn't give me any alternative if I did not see this. You know, one thing I usually do, right, when I want to, when someone wants me to, when I'm stepping out and the person wants me to buy something for the person, right, I say, what do you want? He says, I say, okay, what if it's not there? Because I don't want to come back, right, and you not tell, and you know, it's not there, and you not tell me, hey, you'd have gotten this now, you're expecting to go out again. So I'll tell you, okay, fine, what do you want? You say, what noodles? If there is no noodles, what should I get you? I want this. If that one is not there, what should I also get you? Give me alternatives, right? So that I will try as much as possible to come back with a result, with an expected result for you. Okay? So that's actually what that. So that is where the else comes in, right? So that's where the else comes in. So I can now say else print this is not true. So when we run this, right, you see that we now have this block of code. Remember, I say block of code because it is inside of this what curly what brace, right? So it's not a bracket, it's just call it curly brace. So you have to get used to the actual nomenclature, right? Now, so the else statement from our definition specifies a block of code which is this, right, to be executed if this same condition, which is this guy, is false. So because this is false, the block of code in the else statement is now what? Executed. Okay, so that's actually if else statement. There's no big deal there. Like it's actually just very straightforward, right? Okay, so let's make use of variables. Like let's make use of variables. It's still the same thing, right? But let's just be practicing to how to create our variables and use them. So I could just say a val, and then val x equals 20, and then val y we assign, not equals, right? So I guess I have to, let me correct myself. So I can actually say it to, in a particular space, but since you guys are learning, I need to understand. So assigning 20 to X, assigning 8 to Y, 18 rather to Y. So here, what will I say? I'm just going to say, instead of 20 less than 18, I'll just say X less than what? Y. So of course, this would still give us the result, right? So, but what if I want to I can decide to, remember we learned string concatenations, string template, and stuff like that, right? So I could just make this into a statement and say, okay, I want to actually see the numbers. So I could just say X is not less than Y. So remember, I'm using this on X so that it reads X as a variable, as right, and not just as a character or a string, right? So this should say 20 is not less than 18, right? So I could also do the same thing here, right? So we learned this in our previous classes. So if I change this to greater than, because this is true, of course, 20 is greater than 18. Of course, we see the first one, 20 is greater than 18. Okay. So before I move forward, any question? Any question? Any question? If there is none, just say none in the chat. There's no question. So we move on.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Please, I don't understand from that. Please, can you go back from that if bracket X greater than Y, please? Okay.
Okay, so the X here, we created a variable called X, right? And what we stored in X is 20. So I'm no longer using 20 less than. So the 20 there, I'm storing it in X, and 18, I'm storing it in Y. So X here, right, is a variable, and the content of that variable is 20. So when the compiler is reading, it's going to read the value, and the value there is 20. So this is still the same thing as saying if 20 is greater than 20 greater than 18. It's the same thing, but I'm no longer using 20 greater than 18. I'm now using the variable where I stored it. So I stored 20 in X, right? I stored 18 in Y. So X greater than Y is the same thing as saying 20 greater than what? 18. Okay? Adelinda, is that fine?
Yes, I understand. Please, can you now go to that page LN? That's dollar sign. Can you explain this?
Okay, so what this does, like we learned in our previous class, right? If I do this, I'm going to leave this like this, X, and then leave this one the way it is. And then let's see the result. So you can see this says X is greater than 18. Why? Because we talked about this print line function that it just prints whatever you give it. So if you give this, and of course this is a string because we said strings are sets of characters and you put them in a quote. So this is a string that we want to print. So it's just give it to you like that. But when you put a dollar sign right beside a string, it now reads it, sees it, the print function now sees it as a variable. So it will not print X, it won't show you X, it will show you the content, the value of what X, right? That's why when you see this dollar $Y, so it will not say it's greater than dollar $Y. No, it now says, oh, okay, the fact that this dollar sign is before this Y means that this Y is a variable and it has a value. It has something stored inside. So let me get it. So when we run this now, you can now see that it shows you 20, which is the content of X, right? Which is what is stored in X because X is a variable that we created here, is greater than Y, which is 18. So it reads it as a variable because of this dollar sign. And it checks, okay, this is a variable. What is the content? What's the value? It sees that it's 18, so it uses 18 instead. Is that okay?
Yes, understood. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so let's now look at the else if. Okay, let's look at the else if. So I'm going to use, let's see. It's still the same thing, right? It's still the same thing. So let's use another example to explain this else if, right? So let's say I have a variable called time, and it's 22. We store 22 inside the variable called time, and then I want to now do a check. If time, so when I say if time, what is the value of time? You can just reply on the chat or a comment. What is the value of time? Anybody? What's the value of time?
Ordering by value, is it the format?
No, what's the value of time? Ahmad.
22.
22, that's the value. Yeah, because the time here is a variable, and if it's a variable, it holds a value. So I know you'll get used to some of these terms, right? The time. So time is a variable, right? So when I say what's the value of time, because time is a variable, so the value I mean is the content, what is stored inside. So time is 22. So I want to say if time is less than 10, right? Okay, let's change this. Okay, let's use a string. Oh no, better. So let's assume that this 22. For some of us that uses this what's it called? Time format where your 12 goes to 13 and 14 and 15, 15 to represent 3 o'clock, 15 to represent 4 o'clock and stuff. So 22, right, is 10 o'clock. So think of it like that, right? Okay, so if time is less than 10, right, I want to print good morning, right? So I will now say, okay, it's possible that this guy, right, is false. And if it is false, I'll need an else statement. So, but I don't want to just use an else, I want to use an else if, because I also want to make another check. Remember, we said the else if statement, it also specifies, actually, it specifies a block of code to be executed, right? It specifies a block of code to be executed, right? But this is it. It actually specifies a new condition, right, to test, right? It actually specifies a new condition to test if the first condition is false. Okay, I think what I actually wrote it down. Okay, so let me just put that here, right? Specifies a new condition to test if the first condition is false. Okay, so that's what it does, right? So let's actually use that. So I'm going to say else if giving it a new condition now, if time is less than 20, print good day. And then I'll just give it a last else, right? And then I'm just going to say print good evening. Okay, so now let me ask a question. What do you guys think will be the result of executing this instruction, this code? What do you think the results will be? What will you run? What will be the result? You can respond on the chat or you can unmute. What do you think the results would be? So just read the code, like just follow it line by line and follow the logic. Just follow it before I even think of explaining. Okay, Chinazon, go ahead.
Okay, the value, according to using the algorithm step you gave us, the first we have a variable called time, which has 22 value. So here they said if as the condition is true for if statements, then if time, which is 22, is less than 10, which is false. So the program, once this particular statement, the first statement is false, it will not think about the second equation. It will go to the next statement, which is else if.
Good.
If time is less than 20, so you now see time is 24 and is not less than 20. It will not even think about the second statement. It will go to the else statement, which says which means that if all this condition is false, just like not, if all this condition is false, then give us this. So it's going to print good evening. That's what
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So yes, it will actually print good evening, right? So because time here is 22. So 22 less than 10, that's not true. So because it's not true, it won't even run this. It won't even bother, executing this instruction because it is not true. So it goes to the else if. The else if checks for a new condition, right, of 22, which says time is less than 20. Now, 22 is not less than 20, right? So it will not run this instruction at all because this condition is what false, right? So, of course, if it doesn't run this, it comes down here. And, of course, there's no new condition to test, right? There's no new condition. So this is just an else. And the else statement executes this if the first condition is what? False. So because this is false, this is also false, then that means it prints out good evening, okay? I think, yeah, that's actually that. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any question regarding this? Anyone? Okay, so I think that's clear. So now we can actually also use if else statement as an expression, right? When we talk about an expression basically means we're assigning a value to a variable and returning that variable, right? That is what expression is really all about. So I could actually modify this, right? I could actually modify this and make it an expression. Now, how will I do that? I'll basically just say, create a variable called greeting and this, right? So, I know this may seem confusing, but I'll probably just explain. Let me just do this. This is us using it as an expression. And like I said, an expression basically means you are assigning a value to a variable, right? And returning it. So look at this now, right? So what am I doing here? I have a variable called time, which we have seen. Now I'm creating a variable called greeting. And I want to, this is now an expression. This is an if-else expression because I've created a variable and I want to assign a value to it. So what is the value? So it means that if time is this same code that we know that will give us good evening, right? So this good evening now is going to be returned as going to be assigned or stored towards greeting. So if I want to print, I'm just going to say print greeting, right? And this will still give us good evening, right? So this is using if-else statement as an expression, right? As an expression. So I'm not printing it in the statement. I'm just returning the string. So because this is true, it's now going to take good evening and store it in the greeting variable, right? And then we now print out the greeting, okay? So that's actually that for if-else, right? That's actually that for if-else. Now, this just to show you, right? You could also, when using, now note this, right? When you're using if as an expression, right? You must also include else, right? You must include else whenever you're using if as an expression, right? You must include else. Remember we did if the other time, right? And there was no else, so it just did not run, like it didn't execute because there was nothing. But whenever you're using it as an expression, you must, return. You must use else. Now, you can also omit this. Like you see all this curly brace. See, this thing is just looking a bit, confusing, right? You can actually omit all this, right? Another way you could actually write this code is by, you can just say val, I'm going to comment that out, greeting. You can say if, right, time less than 18, which is the condition, good day. I'm just going to use a different, just to shorten stuff, right? Else, good evening. So this also, you can also do this, right? Right, you can also do this, right? And then you to give you good evening because time, which is 22, less than 18 is false. So to run the else statement. I know some of you may or be thinking, what if? Well, I'll leave you to try out whatever it is you're thinking. You probably say, okay, can we add else if still in that one straight line? Go and try it out, right? Go and try it out, and let everybody know the outcome. Okay, so that's actually that for the if statement, right? So let's look at when, at the other conditional, right? Let's look at when statements, right? I don't know if we'll have time for a while it can break, but let's just go into, let's look at when. Now, the when statement, so if you notice, right, so think about this. When you're writing if else expressions, right, it's possible you have many if else if, especially when you want to test a lot of conditions. Remember, you know we use else if when we want to introduce or specify a new condition to test. So imagine having 6 conditions, right? That means you have a lot of else if, and your code will actually just be long. This is just like a typical example, right? If I let's assume to the thing that just copy from here, right? And paste. So imagine you had like 6 of these conditions, up to 10. So you see that this is chaotic, right? This is like a lot. And of course you can make some mistakes here just because you're typing it, right? So this is a lot. So instead of writing, many if else expressions, you can actually use the when expression, which is much more easier to read, right? So basically the when expression is used to select one of many code blocks to be executed. Now when I say code blocks, also just talking about an instruction within a particular scope, right? Which is within the curly word brace, right? So let's use this example, right, to explain when condition. Okay, I'm just going to comment this out. Okay, probably don't need this. I think okay, let's just leave that. So let me create a variable called day and sign 4, right? And then I'm going to create a result variable. And I'm going to say when day, right? So this is, I'm using it now as an expression, right? Because when is actually an expression. So I'm using it as an expression, right? So when the day is something, right? You understand? That's actually how it's readable, very much readable. I'm getting a variable called result and I want to store something inside. What am I storing? Okay, store the result of when day is something. So when day, then you open your curly brace. So when day is what? Let's say 1. What should happen? Return, do something. So what is it going to return? Let's say Monday. Right? Let's just okay. Let's just use okay, let's just do this. Okay, so yes, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here will be Tuesday. Here will be Wednesday. Here will be Thursday. Here will be Friday. And Saturday. Let's leave Sunday. The day of rest. Okay, so when it is 1, right, you now return Monday. So return Monday means assign Monday to what? So we just use this arrow, a hyphen and an arrow. So this is just the syntax, right? This is just how it's done. So when the day is 1, store Monday in this result. When the day is 2, store Tuesday. When the day is 3, store Wednesday. And when it's 6, you store Saturday. Then we add an else. Else, so we reserve the else statement for the obvious or go to or default value if everything else is false, right? So if it is not Monday, to Saturday, then of course it's, let's say Sunday. Let's just say Sunday, right? If it's not Monday to Saturday, then it definitely was Sunday, right? So outside of the when statement, I'm now going to print my result, right? So what are we doing here? So of course, when I run this, right, it's printing what? Thursday. So what is this doing? So when the day is what? 1. So we have a variable that says day is actually what? 4. It's not 4 there. So when day is what? 4. Day here is 4. But when it came here, day is what? 1. And it's not true. 1 is not 4. Right? 2 is not 4. 3 is not 4. So it didn't play. So but 4 is actually what? 4. This was equal. So when the day now was now 4, what did it now do? It took Thursday, stored it in this result, and then here we are actually what? Printing the what? Result. So you can see this is actually what? More readable. Like it's easy to read. When day is 1, Monday, when day is 2, Tuesday, when day is 3, Wednesday, when day is 4, when else is this, print this. And these when statements are stuff, and the statement we use it, like we use it on a daily basis, right? So let me just run through again, right? This is how it works, right? So the when variable day, that is this day here, is evaluated once. Okay, is evaluated once. So the value of the day variable is compared. The value of this day variable, which is 4, is compared with the values of each of these guys. Each of these branches is compared with each of them, right? So each branch, which is so called a branch, it starts with a value here, which is 1, right? Followed by this arrow, and then the result. So when it keeps on checking each of these branches, if there is a match, right? If there's a match, that associated block of code is executed. So as it matched this, when it came here and it saw that there's a match here, so it executes this. So this guy now Thursday is now taking and installed was here, right? So day here is 4, meaning that it is what? Meaning that it is Thursday, and then that's why when we print the result, we have what? Thursday, right? Is there any question? Is this fine? That's actually about when statements, right? Very, 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 very easy. Okay, so I don't think, okay, that's fine. So that means we're all following. Okay, so let's look into loops, right? Loops, yes, which is a different topic. We still have a bit. Okay, we don't really have much time. Okay, let's just look at that. So in the next class, we'll look into while loop, we'll look into the break and continue. We'll just continue and then we'll finish up, probably get into arrays, right? So by next week, right? Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely try to finish up Kotlin in this month before we get into Android. Okay, so do we have any questions? I don't want to, fill you guys up with a lot, right? But of course, just brace up. We'll get to the point where you have to be able to, store enough information as it's actually given to you. So heads up, the next class will actually be a bit longer, right? To be a bit longer, so stay tuned. Okay, yes, Chinazom, go ahead.
Okay, it's not a question, sort of just like to get an information so that I can get myself ready. I'm using there's a laptop I'm using my office laptop, so I just got approval to be able to install something on it. So I just want to know the particular one we are using. You mentioned Android, you mentioned IntelliJ, so I just want to know the one we are using for this course, so I can download it on my system, and be waiting the day we are going to install it or something.
Okay, Android Studio.
Okay, Android Studio. Okay.
Yes, and that's what I'm using.
Okay. I just want to, if
That's
possible,
fine.
so if you can also help and share the link with us, maybe
The link to download it.
other people may also download and keep it. Maybe the day we
I think
enter.
I've shared that link already, right? So just check pinned messages on your Discord.
Okay.
Yeah, I had
I think
shared that.
the link you shared was a link where we can be reading, following up with the structures.
No. I sent a link where, okay, let me pin it now. Okay. I just pinned it so you can check. So there I dropped a link where you can download Android Studio.
Okay,
So
thank you.
everyone here, in case you have not seen that link, I just pinned it. So you're expected to download Android Studio, create a GitHub account, a Stack Overflow account. Yeah. So just check that out. I just pinned it.
So that we
Okay.
can,
Yeah. You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, so in the absence of none, thank you guys very much. Okay, we'll meet in our next class. Of course, I'm going to drop a task for you guys this night to just, this is just to you to check how much you've been able to, grasp, right, and how much you understand. Okay, so that I'll drop that this night before 11 p.m. So thank you very much, and do have a wonderful night's rest. See you on Friday. Yes, see you on Friday.